Hey guys, another video. This one's about an interesting topic that's kind of bleeding in for my personal life, which is feature flags. So I say that because we use feature flags at my primary job, and this is a concept that really gets driven from the web side. And I'm a mobile developer by trade, so we kind of inherit these ideas and they bleed down to us. Where I haven't seen these ideas live very much is in game development, at least not from what I've seen. So I'd like to introduce the idea of feature flags and how you can implement it easily in Godot and kind of go over the history and what the benefits are, because I do think there are benefits to even indie projects, despite this being more of a tool for large teams. So what is a feature flag? So I'll go over the definition. A feature flag is a runtime toggle for features. So the key word is runtime. This means that for instance, a web app, you shouldn't have to change any code or redeploy a web app. You should be able to change some sort of toggle, some sort of admin, and either the app immediately reflects this change, or maybe the next get request, next full page load, something changes, a section gets removed from the nav bar. On a mobile app, this would mean the app probably immediately changes or changes the next time it appears. If it gets minimized and maximizes, it'll check its feature flags, detects something's now false, and re-renders the UI as appropriate. They facilitate controlled deployments and testing. So this allows you to deploy code that's not viewable by your end users. So it's kind of a shift in thinking. A lot of people, and me included, came from a world where you gate your code behind version control branches. If something's not fully ready to be shipped, it lives in a branch and it doesn't get merged until it's ready, because once it's merged, people are going to use it. Well, feature flags give you some more granularity from that point of view. You could safely merge things knowing that the feature flag is off until you're ready, especially in the web world where this goes hand in hand with continuous deployment, which means you're deploying at a much faster cadence. So this gives you not only that extra granularity of how you're going to roll it out, but it lets you test with a subset of users, because you might be turning on this feature flag for, in the business world, one tenant of your web app, for instance. So another thing this does is it supports experimentation and, more importantly, quick rollback. So because you can turn it on, you can also turn it off. You've tested it with it off because that's the way the app has lived up until this point. So you know that base case works. When you turn it on and you see a fire, this is the web I'm thinking of, you could quickly turn it off without rolling back a whole release, which is traditionally what would have to happen if things blew up. So there are some side effects that are also cited as benefits, but these are actually the benefits I think are actually more beneficial to game development. So the main one is more frequent merges to your main branch or your master branch or your develop branch or whatever. So any sort of collaboration with another person is going to require you guys to live on different branches while you work. Generally, that's how you should be working. Well, if person A is working on one subsystem and person B is working on a different subsystem, there's always this question of when should you merge together? Should it be all the time? Should it be when something's done? Because every time you're merging, you're potentially causing conflicts, you're potentially breaking things. So there will be a temptation to have feature branches that are log living. You don't want to give it a stamp of approval till you know it's done, because once it's in there and you make changes on top of those changes, it's kind of hard to put the genie back in the bottle. Well, if you work in a world where you're always merging to a shared branch like main with constant pull requests or constant fast forward merges, but your feature, your thing you're working on, is going to be turned off for everyone else, and it's only turned on for you, you know that your code is not breaking their code because they've been living in a world where your code lives in their code base and they're not complaining. So you have much less stress when you finally turn on that flag. And the next 2 points really have to do with turning on and feature flags or turning off feature flags selectively. So experimentation with different combinations, but more importantly, maybe turning everything off except one thing so you could, as best you can, test something in isolation or minimize the noise. So one of the cool side effects you'll have by building up feature flags, as you implement features, if they're all behind feature flags, you'll have this this library of features that you could turn almost everything off, and you would then have kind of a bare metal game to test things on, which could be really useful. So you might ask, doesn't Godot already have built-in flags? The answer is actually no. They have something called flags, but they're export flags. They're only computed for export builds. That means if you run in the IDE, if you run a build, you will not be able to react to those flags. More importantly, they're static. They can't be changed at runtime. So remember I said one of the main parts of the definition of a feature flag is it's a runtime flag. So this is something we should be able to change at runtime. And if you implement it with a node system, you could change it like you should be able to change a feature flag like anything else. Now, those flags that are built into the export panel, those are useful. Those are useful for gating content because they're immutable. So this is great for building a demo build, for instance. So how would we go about building feature flags? It can be as simple as just an auto load with a bunch of booleans, and then when you want to turn something on and off, you just change the values from true to false. However, we're going to do a little bit more. We're going to do a basic implementation with these following attributes. We're going to make a scene with a script which has an exported var called features. We're going to make a custom resource called flags. That's going to be the class name. Our custom resource will have one boolean. A new resource file will be created of type flags. We'll set the boolean to true or false. Let's say true, and then we'll set that. We'll set up a scene as a global auto load. Let's see this in action. All right, so we're in Godot, and here's my my main scene. It has a single button called feature flagged button. If you look over here, I've given this button a unique name of button. Okay, that just means in the script we could access it with its unique name. So I have an onReady var feature flagged button, and this is the main script. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new resource. So I'm going to right click here, create new script, and we're going to call it flags. Case F. It's going to inherit from resource. Let's take a look at flags. We're going to give it a class name of flags. And flags is going to have one export var. It's going to be a boolean. Let's say feature flag button. That's going to be true. So this is our first feature flag. Alright, the next step, we're going to create an instance of flags, an actual resource instance. So we're going to create a new flags file, we'll call it flags. Let's call it feature flags. Double click on it. Make sure the inspector tab's open. And you can see it's on by default. Right? We'll leave that there. We're now going to create a new script, and we'll call it auto load this is going to have an export of features, type feature flags, or sorry, of type flags. Alright, so we have our main scene, which remember just has a single button. In the code for the main scene, on ready we get a reference to the button, and then we currently do nothing. What I want to happen is we will disable or enable feature flagged button based on feature flag. Alright, so that's the intended functionality we'll do in ready, but we're not quite there yet. So what I need is a scene to make an auto load. You can either make a script or a scene in auto load. I like to make scenes auto loads, so I'm gonna make another scene. We're gonna call this one auto load feature. It could just be a node. And then we're gonna attach this script. Alright, and we should be ready now. So, we have a scene called autoload feature flags. Oops, is this the file? And we're gonna make this an autoload, which requires us to go into project settings, globals, autoload, select the scene that we just talked about. We're gonna give it a name. I'm gonna call it flags. Or actually, I can't call it flags. That's taken. I'm gonna call it feature flags. And add it. So now feature flags will be a global reference to this scene, which is of type node, but we've attached a script called autoload feature flags, which has features which we just need to now load the correct flags file for. So the last step is to select this, and then load our feature flag file in. Just expand it to prove that that's the one we have in our file system. Sorry. All right, so we're now ready to roll. If we go back to our main script, on ready, we now have access to feature flags, dot features, and let's just take a look at this, dot feature flag button. So we could bind, let's say, feature flag button dot visible. And let's run that. And when we run it, we see the button. If we jump back out and change our resource, uncheck the file, and run it again, the button is gone. Now the final thing we could do is, I won't demonstrate it because this is a topic for a future video, but the next thing we could do is in our flags, we could add a custom symbol, we could add a custom signal that would trigger or would emit whenever it changed. And then any place we're listening for feature flags, we would observe that signal so that we could refresh rather than just computing them on ready. Hope that was helpful. See you next time.